Hey guys, Eric and Roth here to talk about the Breaking Bad episode Buried. And again, these final episodes are not wasting any time.
Nope.
I mean, the fact that, last week we were already shocked that, Hank and Walt, it's all on the table. But now Hank immediately going to Skylar, immediately telling Marie. It's just, we're seeing now, we know that eventually everyone's going to know, and we're seeing, okay, it's all starting now.
Yeah, I'm loving the pace a lot because it doesn't feel sort of kinetic, so kinetic that you can't keep up with it, but it does feel like this, as if it's been building and building and building, and that happens, right? Building and building and building, and once something is let loose, it's catalytic. It keeps going and going and going. It's building towards a bigger explosion, we imagine.
Right.
I wanted to talk about Skylar and get your opinion on this one because it's been a bit controversial in the sense that some people are feeling like, okay, here it is at the 11th hour. The writers are trying to make her sympathetic to those who have disliked her all along by having her be on sort of Team Walt at this point. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I never understood the people that were so against her because Walt is a monster, and I do think it's that kind of, there is a fan base who are like, Walt's awesome, he's badass, and this woman is kind of interfering with him. So I guess maybe this will help if she's standing by her man, trying to protect his criminal enterprise, So it's interesting. It was, I do think you have to think about the fact that she finds out that he is dying again in this episode and how much that could fuel things, because she kind of knows again that he will be gone soon, and maybe this is the best thing is to wait it out. She once said that to him in a very dark way.
Yeah.
But now maybe it's more like, let's just wait for him to die and
the
problem will go away.
Yeah, maybe just as Hank said, run out the clock. This is what I thought, though. I mean, two things. I think it's very interesting, the idea that this somehow makes her sympathetic, that she's trying to cover a mass murderer's criminal activities.
Right.
That's just really fascinating to me about the viewership,
yeah.
A. And then B is the idea that I actually think that, I feel like that's very human, that you catch yourself in a situation that you don't want to be in, that you're resistant to, but suddenly somebody comes in and fights you on it, and you fight for it. It's a very odd aspect of human nature that I do think is very real. I feel like her sort of response made a lot of sense, not just for her character, but for any person in some ways. And she doesn't know the full extent of what Walt has done at this point. And like Lydia, she is metaphorically covering her eyes to the carnage, even though she's culpable in it. I also feel like on the writer's part, I don't foresee this family making it out alive.
Right.
I really don't, because the thing that Walt says...
They're not keeping the house, we know that.
Yeah, because the thing that Walt says is, please don't make this worth nothing. This has to have supported my family or helped my family. I feel like they're not going to make it out alive. In a weird way, the writers have now made it okay to kill Skylar.
Well, this episode also, interestingly, kind of made Walt more sympathetic than he's been in a while. First of all, he was pretty adamant that Hank cannot be killed to Saul for now. But it did, it was a step back, Belize, yeah. But it was a step back from last week with the tread lightly thing, because he was basically saying to Saul, no, you can't kill him, he's family, which in some respects is almost a surprise at this point, given we've seen how far Walt will go. And then that scene with Skylar, he was very much like, don't make this be for nothing, because he did start out being like, I will make this money to protect my family when I'm gone. And so it did kind of circle back to that, and at least would help her be like, okay, he wants us to be okay, and he'll be dead soon. And it's all kind of wrapped up and complicated for her, because I don't think she's just like, oh, you're my great husband again, but at the same time, she is going to help him sort of protect this secret for now.
And it makes it all the more poignant that family is the ultimate thing to Walt. It really is, and it always has been, and still is, given his response, about Hank. Don't send him to Belize. I'm not going to have him be killed. Absolutely not, It makes it all the more poignant if he really did do it all for nothing.
Yeah. And then I also want to talk about Marie going to Skylar. I thought that was a great scene, again, because I think the writers are being very smart in that having her bring up a lot of stuff. Once she realizes that Skylar knew about this thing, bringing up the fact that that whole thing with the gambling addiction was a lie, and that basically how much Marie feels manipulated, and she's right to, bringing up the fact that, did you know about this before Hank got shot?
Yeah.
And again, you're like, wow, yeah, that's all true. And it's pretty damn messy.
Yeah, and they're managing to weave in all of these different aspects of these characters. I mean, kleptobabia, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But very understandably.
When Marie is freaking out, she tries to steal.
Very understandably in this particular case. I would probably try to take that baby too in her position.
Right.
But I think what was really cool is that all of these conversations are kind of mirroring each other. and mirroring previous conversations of sort of putting the pieces together. And Marie is able to do it because they are so close, but Skylar can't talk to her, you know, the way that she's always been able to talk to her, because now they are so completely at odds. I just think it's kind of fascinating the way they've been able to bring all of this around full circle.
Yeah, and having Marie now be so hardcore to be like, you've got to get him.
Oh yeah, well you don't mess with Hank.
No.
Marie's been very clear about how
Very
she feels about
protective of
Hank.
Hank. Yeah. I want to bring up, you mentioned in passing Lydia, but let's talk about Lydia. I think I love this character. I don't love her on a moral sense, but I just think she's been a fascinating inclusion this season. And yeah, to see in this episode, I mean, she, authorizes the murder of all these people, and yet she can't look at it.
Yeah.
But there's a really fun, interesting parallel here where she and Todd are becoming the new Walt and Jesse in a very distinct ways. It's like this is kind of becoming this warped mirror version of Walt and Jesse with like the unassuming person you wouldn't think would be involved in this thing at all, the younger guy that's like working with her,
who's more in the criminal world.
Right,
initially.
right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Lydia is a fascinating character. I mean, she's authorized these kills for 8%.
Yeah.
What else is she going to authorize for something bigger, for something more significant? You know what I mean? I'm not saying 8% isn't significant, but still.
Right.
Todd. I think Todd is the one that makes it out. I really do. I mean, it's so dark and twisted, but he is so completely chilling. He's so completely chilling the way that he's always been so polite and so quick to kill.
Yeah.
He has absolutely no qualms about it at all. And I have this sense, like, man, if anybody's going to make it, it's not Lydia.
Right.
I feel like she's not long for this world. It's Todd.
I mean, I see there's a possibility of one or both of them. I do think the end of the show will show some representation of this grouping continuing on after Walt and Jesse are gone, whatever that means,
Yeah.
But yeah, Todd is just so laser focused. Obviously, when I say he is a mirror image of Jesse, he has none of the moral issues that
No.
Jesse ever had,
No, and Lydia, and to be fair, Lydia has none of the moral issues even that Walt has periodically had.
No.
She just has zero at all, but she is unwilling to face up to it.
No, she won't own it.
Yeah, she won't own it at all. It is really, really, really fascinating. Let's talk about Walt, though. One of the other things that I really appreciated was, it was such a machismo line last week, tread lightly, and
Yeah.
it's so great. We loved it. What was really cool is that they let him back away from that immediately
Yeah.
and panic and run and be trying to call Skylar. I sort of loved that the writers allow that, those different nuances to all of these characters.
Yeah, I mean, this show is great with going back and forth on those badass moments, but then very well-rounded characters. So Walt has become this scary and badass guy, but he's not all that all the time. Also want to mention, just as a quick moment, very, very funny moment with the money, the Scrooge McDuck scene, as
Yes.
it were. Those are those great moments of levity that Breaking Bad has always had that don't feel out of place, where they're like, let's just take a little diversion here.
But it was also in a weird way necessary, because there was a question in my mind, man, if I'm Saul and I see all of those barrels of money, why don't I just kill Walt?
Right.
Why not? Because you're so scared of him at this point.
Because yes, Saul has never been a guy to like authorize a hit. He's
Right.
allowed. He's let it. He knows it's going on.
Like
but
Lydia.
it's yeah. But it's
Or-
yeah. But he's not even as Lydia. Lydia's
Yeah.
more like she will like say like do this.
Yeah.
Saul's like, yeah, I know that's going on, but I won't say it. And then lastly, we said last week that we were waiting for Jesse and Hank. This seemed to open the door, and the end of the episode. Obviously, we don't know what that conversation is going to be, but Jesse didn't speak this episode, but let's see what happens.
Wasn't that fascinating how
Yeah.
much was revealed in that silence, about where he's at? And when he does speak, what is he going to say?
Right. So what do you think? Let us know in the comments. We'll be back next week talking more Breaking Bad, guys.